Good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us on A World Awakening. This is a very exciting and very special show for me, not only because I've been away for a while, and I deeply appreciate Erin Bush for filling in for me. I am so proud to know her and to have her step into my rather large shoes from time to time. She does a great job, but it's thrilling to be back with you. I think I picked up a little something in my travels, so I'm slightly under the weather, but I'm so thrilled to be here that just the thought of doing the show with you all tonight lifts me up. And I have, before we bring on our very, very special guest, Tony Rathman, who is my dear, dear friend and the former producer of this show, who I feel absolutely certain will be back. I wanted to tell you about an experience that I had today. Uh, and I just posted about it on Facebook. It's an amazing thing that happened today. I had to be at the airport at TF Green Airport in Rhode Island at 3 o'clock this morning. I had gotten approximately an hour and a half sleep, maybe two. Uh, and so I was pretty wiped out. Dad was actually doing better than I was. He was traveling with me. And I got on the plane, and just as we settled in, Dad had the window, I had the aisle. They announced that the plane was full, every seat would be taken. So I knew I would at some point be moving over into the middle seat. And a young lady came onto the plane. She was the last one on, and mine was the last seat. So I graciously moved over into the center and invited her into the seat that I had been in. And we sat down. I leaned back and I closed my eyes because I was exhausted. As we began taxiing out onto the tarmac, I had this strangest feeling. I had the strangest feeling. I guess I'll just leave it at that. I didn't know that my life was about to change. I didn't know that. But it actually was. Um, as we started barreling down the runway, picking up speed, my eyes were closed, I was relaxed, and all of a sudden I felt the softest, sweetest touch on my left hand. And I opened my eyes and I turned and I looked at her and I saw terror in her eyes. And I said, "Oh, honey, are you afraid to fly?" And she said, "Yes." And I put my other hand over her hand and I just leaned into her and I said, "Don't worry about a thing. There's nothing to be afraid of. I travel with my own security detail, and even though you can't see them, they are here, and you are sitting in the safest seat in the skies right now." And her eyes just brightened up, and I held her hands, and we got up into the air. It was a perfect takeoff, and so began a 3-hour conversation that changed my life, and it changed hers too. I I tried so hard to prepare for this so that I wouldn't cry through it, but her name, I can't really tell you her whole name, and there's a reason for it. Um, but her first name is Sohelia, and she is absolutely stunningly beautiful. She radiates light from inside out. And we snapped a few pictures together. Thank you, Bill, for putting them up. There I'm wearing my old farm sweatshirt. And look at that face. You see any fear in that face? None. None. And we talked for 3 hours. I was the first person that she had touched in more than a year. The first person who had touched her in more than a year. Um, she divulged her story to me. Please pardon me. pardon me. She was on the last plane, the last transport out of Afghanistan, with bombs going off around her and bullets flying over her head. Her parents escaped Afghanistan by land. I can't say where they went. Her sisters are still there, and they're doing everything to get them out. And we talked, and we talked, and we shared, and we shared. And she inspired me. She is a radiant epiphany. And I saw the face of trauma. I know what trauma looks like in her eyes. And I did everything in my power to dispel it and to bring her back into her safe place within her soul, where she knew she would have the confidence to go on. She was traveling from Providence to see a friend who she had gone to school with, a young woman that's out in Phoenix, actually. And I said, oh, my guest on my show tonight is from Phoenix, and it's such a beautiful place, and oh my God, you will love it. And then I pulled out pictures, and I introduced her to Peanut Buttercup, and I introduced her to my family, and she kept seeing pictures of different promo banners or whatever that I had downloaded into my phone to share. And she just looked at me and she said, are you famous? And I was like, oh, maybe this much, or maybe this famous. Yes, she was, Lori. Absolutely. She was absolutely meant to be there. And night before last, I was talking with my friend Lori at the farm, and we went deep. We went really deep about our fears and our concerns about the planet and the people on it, and fear the living, not the dead. And I mean, and I told her, I said, Lori, sometimes I feel like a fraud. I mean, I know I'm always trying to cheer everybody up and give them hope, and it's okay to have faith, and, just hang in there. It's going to get better. We'll all make it better. We'll all come together. We'll make it better. And then there are times that I feel so hopeless that I wonder, why I even dare say things like that to other people when I don't feel it myself in those moments. Well, she renewed my faith in humanity. In humanity. She has, well, I wrapped my arms around her. I held her. She did not want to let me go. She did not want to let me leave that plane. Everybody around us could see what had happened. They were all, just smiling and crying. And, some people had heard, and I said, honey, when we clear the plane out, go take a window seat, because you're going to go over some of the most extraordinary land in this whole country. And I want you to see it. And she said, well, they told us we couldn't move. And I said, are you kidding me? Don't never take no for an answer. Never take no for an answer. And, people were laughing and clapping. And, it was an extraordinary exchange. It was mystical and it was magical. And she shared with me. We just cried and we held each other, and I pulled out more tissues and handed them to her, and we cried some more. And it was tears of joy as well as sorrow, because when she explained to me what her experience was as a 22-year-old in Afghanistan, and trying to escape and trying to get her sisters out, that they have yet to accomplish, and under what regime they are living on, and when the Taliban took over the airport, and how brutal and oppressive, and it's only gotten worse and worse. And she said what I had suspected, that at the very end, all of the politicians that were running the country absconded with all of the money and are now living in villas in France and Italy, and they're gone. They're nice and safe. But so many people got left behind. So many did. And we talked about all of it. And she said that it was the first time that she felt like she could breathe. It was the first time that she felt in herself again. And that her confidence had just, burgeoned. And I said, well, honey, what are your friends in America saying about this? And she just looked at me and she said, I don't have any friends in America. And I said, well, you do now, and you're going to have a lot more. Um, it it changed me. How dare I feel sorry for myself for one moment after this child has been through what she's been through. And she is brilliant, and she's beautiful, and she goes to Brown University. And I told her, I said, you get the best education that you can. And she's a philosophy major, just like me. I told her, we talked about that. And I felt so uplifted and so joyful in my heart. I didn't want to let her go either. We've already talked back and forth today when she landed in Phoenix, and I will be a permanent part of her life, a permanent part of her life, and she will be a permanent part of mine. And the next time I go to Rhode Island, I'm going up to Brown University, and I am fetching her, and I am going to give her the time of her life and take her to extraordinary places that she has never seen. And I'm going to show her what it's like to be in New England. And I told her that the most precious thing in life is freedom. And our country has its issues. Jesus, God knows, we've got our problems, but it's still the best country in the world to live in. And we work at our problems, and we expose the foibles, and we seek justice, and we grow, and we evolve, and we learn. And freedom, freedom, freedom is the most, yes, Lori, she is. And so she's 23. She just turned 23, and I have adopted her. And the joy, the mystical, magical wonderment of meeting her. I was absolutely supposed to meet her today, and she was absolutely supposed to meet me. And I just wanted to share this story with all of you and ask you to keep her in your thoughts and your prayers and lift her up, because it broke my heart to hear that I was the first person that she had actually touched since she came to the United States, and has lived in such isolation and head buried in books and very studious, but no social life at all, because she was so afraid and so traumatized and didn't know who to trust. And all of that changed today because I told her I was the most trustworthy person that she could ever meet, and she could tell me anything, and I will always be there for her. And I mean it. All of you out there who are personal friends of mine, you know I mean it. So keep her in your thoughts, my beautiful, beautiful new friend, my new adopted daughter. And with that, let me bring in another extremely good man, a wonderful friend, my dear, dear Tony Rathman. I love you so much. Thank you for joining us tonight, sweetheart.
I've missed you, and I've missed being here. And I have to say, that was an absolutely beautiful story. And I cannot think of anyone better on the planet that she could have run into to take away those fears, to quiet her I can't think of the word I'm looking for, but to quiet her soul, to put her at ease, than to have 3 hours, 4 hours, whatever the flight time was with.
It was 3 hours, and she said when it was over that it felt like the whole weight of the world had been lifted off of her, and that she could truly breathe for the first time. And then, my father, of course, when he woke up after his nice long nap, I introduced them and I gave him a very brief synopsis, and Dad's like, come here, sweetheart. And he just held her and held her and held her, and I did too. And everyone around us was so moved by what they witnessed that it didn't just affect her. It didn't just affect me or my father. It affected everyone who witnessed it.
Right.
And that is the magic and the pure power of love.
Agreed. Agreed. You changed probably the attitude, the confidence level of probably 90% of that plane, let alone what you did for that young girl and what she did for you. I mean, that absolutely just beautiful, beautiful life experience for all of you. That's amazing.
She renewed my faith and gave me hope for the future. She did.
Yes.
Thank you, sweetheart. Thank you. Oh, so Tony, what the hell is going on with you? What have you been? Now, that's facetious because I do know some of it. Thank you for, keeping me up to date. But everybody who knows and loves you, who's watching this show, and we have like gobs of people in because it's Tony. So why don't you just go ahead and bring us up to date, everyone, on the mischief that you have been making.
I can certainly do that. Well, we've been doing a lot, really. We've been bouncing around to different smaller, newer Paracons that came up this year.
Yeah.
We, of course, being highly involved in EVPs, ITC, communication, we started working on a new method of communicating. And it follows a similar line of ITC, or instrumental trans communication with spirit boxes, but the method is completely different. And Cherie and I, when we went out to New Jersey, we spent 4 nights in the New Jersey, New York area, and we did 4 haunted mansions in 4 days, and we slept like very, very little. But my paranormal counterpart, Ron Iacovetti, was using this device or method, I guess is a better term for it, called direct radio voice. Mm-hmm. And the things he captured while we were at these 4 different haunted mansions just blew me away. So I said, okay, you have to teach me this, show me how this works, teach me the theory behind it. And I've spent probably the last 4 or 5 months playing with it and researching with it. And the communication is something I've never experienced before. I mean, I know you've had experiences with people using different types of spirit boxes. And do answers come through? Absolutely they do.
Yeah.
But not in the method like this device operates or this method operates. Mm-hmm. I mean, I've got a couple of clips that sometime during the show tonight I'm going to play to give you and the audience the experience of what I'm talking about, because it is a connection that I have not seen before. And after 12 years of doing ITC communication, have not experienced anything even closely related to how this thing operates. But other than that, I've been spending a lot of time with that. We have some new locations that are on our books for this year. Can't quite mention what those are yet. But of course, the Vulture City Paracon's coming up.
Yes, it is, and I will be there.
I can't wait. That'll be fantastic. And then there's some other investigations we have within this state and a couple outside of the state that we're planning to do. And then, of course, we've got another documentary on the books that we're going to try to get going here in the next month or so. And just some great stuff happening, both from a regular life perspective and, of course, the whole paranormal side of it as well.
Yes. Well, sometimes, well, first of all, I was devastated when you told me that, real life, normal versus paranormal was eating your lunch, and that it was just overwhelming and you had to step away from World Awakening for a while. But I knew immediately that when you did that, number one, you would be back. And number two, that where a door is closed, a window opens. And so I knew that there would be some transformation that occurred. Um, and now we're seeing that come to fruition. We're seeing that um, actually, the application of this new method. And this is something tells me this is just the beginning, Tony, just the beginning.
I completely agree. Like I said, just the past 5 months of testing,
Mm-hmm.
there I'm at the tip of the iceberg with it. And Ron Iacovetti has been doing this for a couple of years now, and he's capturing some amazing things. But we had some connections that happened. I mean, I'm way on the West Coast. He's in New Jersey on the East Coast. But the connection between the communication between what I was receiving and what he was receiving, and I have a sample to play tonight, just so the audience can get the full effect of what I'm talking about. That just blew me away. But yeah, when, like you said, when one door closes, a window opens or another door opens. But yeah, that was a big adjustment for me. I mean, I'm working probably 11 and a half hours a day. I leave the house about 5:45 in the morning, and I get home usually not until 7 p.m. at night. And that was hard to adjust to, because I would normally come home from work and it would be maybe 5 o'clock, and I'd have hours to still, play around with the paranormal, get the other things done. Now I get home, I eat, get clothes ready, pack a lunch, and I'm right back. And it's not until a Friday night or a Saturday that I can finally go, okay, what do I need to do?
Right.
Yeah,
Well,
but it's
what do you want to share first about
well,
this experience, and what setup do you need to do in order to share it, so for context?
okay. Well, the clips are all set for Bill to play, but what I want to say is that I've spent 10 years communicating with spirit boxes, and we built them. We built ones that had no static. We built ones to try to clear up that communication, but the goal was always to make the voices audible, so that you're not battling static, so that you weren't battling interference. But we also wanted to find a way to solidify the voices that were coming through, take away some of the common banter that people say, oh, you're picking up a radio station, or you're picking up a CB, a walkie-talkie, a baby monitor. Well, this method completes those objectives as well. And let me explain real quickly before we play the first response I ever got. Was that it doesn't scan radio. In fact, it uses either a long wave frequency or a short wave frequency with no radio transmission at all. So you could literally take the world band radio, which looks like this, and leave it on all day, and you won't hear any transmission come through. There's nothing but white noise. Okay. That's the only frequency. Then the white noise is filtered through a computer program, which is called VST. It stands for Virtual Studio Technology. So it's basically a computerized version of what every recording studio has in actual hardware, synthesizers, equalizers, noise reduction. It basically does all of that. But what happens is that in that white noise, and white noise is basically every audible signal combined in one at a constant. So it means everything in there is equal. Well, the way this works is that you filter through the frequencies until the static noise gets reduced, and behind that static noise are all these voices. And to hear that for the first time, now I heard it when Ron did it, but for myself, was incredible. And so real quick, and I'm pretty sure this clip is super short, But this is the first one that I had ever captured where I realized they were interacting. So, Bill, if you want to play the one that I believe is titled Can Hear Us, now would be a good time.
Yes, you're connecting. Yes, you're connecting.
So I'm listening to this, trying to communicate, and these voices came on and said, he can hear us, meaning they were aware that I was trying to communicate, and they were responding with normal human voices. I mean, there's no echo, there's no reverb, they literally normal voice, like if they were standing next to you talking. And I'm like, okay, they're acknowledging the fact that I'm trying to communicate with them. And they said, he can hear us. Well, yeah, I could. And then they said, well, can he see us? Well, that was never answered, which of course I couldn't. But that first communication blew me away. So now it's not like I hadn't captured stuff like that on spirit boxes before, but to have it in a natural tone of voice where it's not altered, it's not, it sounds as if, like I said, they're standing right next to you. Yeah. So I continued to experiment with it. And every time I turned it on, more and more stuff would occur. Now, the funny part is that back in the 1970s and 80s, there was a gentleman by the name of Marcello Bacci, who was known for what was called direct radio voice. And he claimed that he could get these voices to come through a long wave or a short wave frequency. Now, he didn't have the computer software that I'm using to filter them. But so it was just a straight radio. But it's kind of like if you were an archaeologist back in the 40s and you were digging up dinosaur bones with a pickaxe and a broom to clean them off. Or today, if you were using ground penetrating radar where you could see where they were at before you even started the dig, the method has changed, but it doesn't change the bones you're uncovering, or in this case, the voices. So it's not like the software that we're using to uncover it is creating those voices. Right. It's just giving us the electronic ability to uncover them. Yeah. So Marcello Bacci was doing these, and he was actually tested by scientists, and he was using vacuum tube radios, and they stuck him in a Faraday cage lab, which doesn't allow radio signals in, and he was still getting voices. So then they said, well, I'll tell you what, if we can pull one of the vacuum tubes and you still get responses, then I'll really be impressed. Yeah. Well, he pulled it. He did. Then he said, well, I'll tell you what, I'm going to pull the second one because there's 3 tubes. He said, I'll pull the second one. If you still get voices, I'll eat the 3rd vacuum tube. Well, they pulled it, and he still got voices. Of course, he didn't let him eat it because it's glass, but he literally was not, science wasn't able to debunk what he claimed he was getting. So that's what this method is based on. So I'm trying to think what the next clip is, if that's, well, anyway, since I brought up Bacci, let's play the Bacci one. But yeah, I got this response, and I was absolutely blown away. So, Bill, go ahead and play the Bacci one.
Spirits, can you please try to communicate with us through this device? Who's watching?
Bachi. That was clear. Do you want us to do the rumbling?
Bachi, are you keeping track of what we're doing?
Marcello, can you see us?
Yes.
Thank you. Marcello, you started this method. It's working. Can you please try to communicate with us?
Wow. Wow.
So when I heard that, I was just blown away. Now, do I know for a fact that it's really, the Marcello Bacci who passed away? No, I don't. But the fact that the intelligent communication flowed so easily, we'd ask a question, the response was right there. It was clear. It was easy to hear. So we've continued this method, and it has not failed us yet, and it continues to produce just amazing results. So some strange things happened after that clip was captured. And I was speaking to Ron, who's on the other side of the country. And that was probably the second communication that I had. And so I was so new to it. And he called me up and he said, I was playing with DRV. He goes, I had an interesting question asked of me. And I said, really? I said, what were you asked? He said, I was asked about you. And I'm like, you're kidding me. So, Bill, if you can play the one that says, and Bocce comes up in this one too. Ron, if you can, or if you can play the one, Ron, DRV, or Tony and Bocce, I think it is. Here was.
Hey, Tony's my friend. I would agree. Can you say entity voices?
So that just opened up doors of communication, and the fact that, like I said, we're on the other side of the two opposite sides of the country. The fact that they had just begun to speak with me, obviously and again, these are all theories and assumptions, but they knew he had been doing this for a while, and it's like they almost went to ask, okay, is Tony okay to speak with? Is, you know, it's just, it was.
Is he your friend? Yeah.
Right. Is he your, and then she says, no, I'm asking, like, you know, it was incredible. And then, you know, like I said, we've been continuing to evolve it, and it just keeps delivering. And it's incredible stuff, because it goes far beyond a word or two that that you get from a spirit box. You might get a yes, you might get a no, you might get a name. But this is more of almost a two-way communication, where the conversation can keep going.
And for them to say your name, that you're a human being, that you're evolving, that, you know, that you can hear their music. You know, it's this. All I can say is we need to get you to the farm. We need to get you to the farm.
Yes, I could not agree more. And this method, you know, I don't even know what it would do, but would be so exciting. The way that it functions, and the fact that the voices aren't garbled and static, they're clear, they're audible, you're not guessing at what was said, what that would do in the farmhouse, and what it could open up as far as knowledge and understanding of what's occurring there, because they're not afraid to talk. In fact, and we don't have to play it right now, because I'm sure there's, you know, lots to talk about, but one of the most interesting things that occurred is that normally when I'm doing ITC or spirit communication, is that I'm asking the questions, what spirits are here? You know, do you have messages? Whatever, I'm asking, hoping for responses. But I have a clip, and we don't have to play it right now, but where literally they're asking me the questions. I'm the one responding to what's being asked. And it's just, I've never experienced that before with that kind of intelligence and communication level. So it's interesting stuff. No doubt about it. Now, can I prove any of it? Not yet, outside of what clips, but I'm telling you, from a research standpoint, being able to continually test it and see what else can be captured, it's fun stuff.
Well, you're really just beginning.
Right.
My sense of this is that this is the door opening, that once there is a level of communication and comfort established on both sides, you know, yours and theirs, that this is really just the beginning of a major breakthrough in communication with spirit, and not even necessarily spirit, because when they said about their music, which sounded kind of synthesized.
Yeah.
I don't know. I could be wrong, but you know, I got a thing with the Galactic Family, and I just, for a moment there, I felt like they might be speaking with another race, because
Absolutely.
You were identified as he's a human being who's evolving. You know, and I was like, oh, fuck, what is this?
That's exactly what we said. That wasn't normal human or spirit
right
sentences. That was something. So we're like, okay, is this extraterrestrial? Is this multidimensional? You know, to hear somebody say he's human, okay, then the first thought that comes to your mind is,
and
what are you?
What are you?
What are you? Right.
Yeah.
So just crazy stuff.
So exciting, Tony. Now, we're making great leaps and bounds with technology, but the technology is meaningless unless the person who's using it is turned on, tuned in, open to the process, you know, and evolving, ready to to take it to the next level and the next level and the next level, and have no fear of this, and open one door after another after another. This is absolutely phenomenal in every sense of that word. I know how excited you and Cherie and the team must be.
Oh yeah. Well, and what you just mentioned is one of the things that when I asked Ron, okay, will you teach me this? I want to learn how to do this. He said, you will have this down in no time because you've spent the last decade communicating with them via spirit boxes and other methods. And he said, same thing you said. He said, it is that trust. And when you use this method, those doors will fly open. And it's been an exciting ride because, every free moment I got, I have the thing on.
Yeah.
I think that clip you heard both Cherie using it and my son using it, because you just never know what's going to be said, what's going to come through. And like you said, it's tip of the iceberg. There is so much more yet to learn, yet to understand. And that'll probably never stop.
No,
That's
it
kind
never
of a
will.
lifelong, right.
It never will. And as the technology improves and as it gets more and more sophisticated, I think this might sound a little strange, but I think the technology, at least with the galactic family, I perceive their technology to be so sophisticated compared with our own that as our technology evolves and we learn more and more about how to use it in terms of this communication, there's nothing to say that we're not tapping in to their technology. I've had experiences, you even hear when we've been doing the show, people will all of a sudden hop in and say, I hear this synthesized music. What is that? What is that sound? Is it your computer? No, it's not our computer. It's them. It's them letting us know that they know what we're doing, that they know what we're saying, and that they're interacting with us, listening to us. And when I've had a couple of incidents on my computer where all of a sudden everything shuts down and all I hear is this strange tonal, almost, it's not even synthesized. It's something else. It's just something else. And everything will freeze. And that's all I hear. And yet I feel like they're using that somehow some part of me is interpreting the music that they're playing and that it's speaking to me, like light language, like learning to read light language, learning to read crop circles, learning to read their music, to be able to listen to them through your own heart, to feel them, that it's not, from the neck up, it's a full body experience. And all of a sudden, when every hair stands up on you and you can literally feel like little creepy crawlers through your veins, and you're having an experience of it's fifth dimension. And I think that's what you're tapping into. I think you're tapping into that. You're bypassing fourth and going into fifth. And nothing could be more exciting than that.
No, I completely agree. And I would absolutely agree that it is that fifth dimension. And I'm going to have Bill play one more. Bill, if you can play Energy of the Mind, I think it's called. They actually answer this question. I ask how they're hearing me, how we're communicating, and they answer. So, Bill, if you can play that one.
Can you say Tony? Did you just say Rathman? Yep. So you know who I am. Can I know who you are? Yes, sir. Thank you. Who am I speaking to? How many spirits are with me right now? Did it say 8? How many spirits are with me right now? A lot? Where are you at right now? How do you hear me speak? How do you hear me when I speak to you? Did you say they're dead? Yes. So you were once alive like me. Yes. So are you on this planet as well? All right, if I'm really speaking to people who had passed away from this planet, can you say hello, spirits? Sorry, you like being called spirits. Yep, okay.
That's just it's crazy, but it happens, and I am absolutely thrilled with what's been occurring. So it's, but I mean, to have them literally say, it's energy of the mind. Does that mean that, do we know it's spirits? Could it be extraterrestrial? It could be anything. I mean, energy is everything. Energy is what the universe is. All of it.
Consciousness.
So, consciousness, exactly. So does that help determine who's communicating? No, it doesn't. It opens up every door in the universe as to how this is occurring. And it's just, it's intriguing stuff. And, the other really neat thing about it is that Ron used his method in a cave. He was like 40 feet underground, and everyone else had spirit boxes, and 2 feet into the cave, the spirit boxes didn't work because radio waves won't penetrate rock, soil.
Yep.
Right. They bounce off and reflect. He was the only one to be able to still get voices inside this cave. And then you got to think, okay, what type of energy is this? How is it going through rock and earth, and how is it not being reflected, or how is it not time or space bound?
Sure.
And the funniest thing, and I feel silly telling this story, but Ron and I were on the phone talking about it for like almost 2 hours about what possibilities there were to have some type of particle or atom or subparticle be able to penetrate ground like that?
Mm-hmm.
And we had the conversation, like I said, it was about a 2-hour conversation. I went to bed after we got off the phone, got up the next morning, picked my cell phone up, turned it on, and I had a Facebook message from no sender. There was no sender. There was a link in the message, which was, I noticed, a YouTube link. But I was afraid to touch it. I'm thinking, okay, this is some sort of going to be hacked.
Somebody's going to blow up your phone. Yep.
So I didn't click it. So I kept it open. I went to my computer and I typed it in. And sure enough, it went to YouTube. Guess what video it went to?
What?
A Marcello Bacci video on YouTube.
Yeah.
And he asked that question. Of course, he did it in Italian and there were English subtitles, but he asked that exact question that we spent 2 hours talking about, what kind of wave, what kind of particle is allowing the transmission of these voices. And the spirit in the video literally answered the question he asked back in the 1980s. And the fact for it to show up on my phone from no sender, I was blown away. I was like, this is the strangest thing I've ever encountered.
Yeah.
And it just kept coming. It just kept happening.
Well, on some level, and I might be getting a little too metaphysical here, but on some level, I really do feel that you've been chosen to carry on his work and to bring it to the next level, and that he's somehow a part of that. And of course, they can use and manipulate our technology. It happens all the time, time. So basically the question that you and Ron were asking, they answered for you, sent you in exactly the right direction, and Bacci is probably somewhere, somehow watching this right now.
You never know. Very possible. Very possible. But it was this influx of coming from every angle that happened in a matter of a week or two. And it was one of those things where you couldn't put parts of it aside or ignore it. I mean, it was one of those things that you just start thinking about and be like, okay, how did this happen?
Right.
And, still don't have explanations, but, I'm over trying to determine what reason or how it happened, because, we know what happened. They were sharing, they were helping, they were watching, they were paying attention, and like you said, that's the tip of the iceberg. And what other possibilities this method has to expand that communication, to find out who else has the ability, what else has the ability to send messages that can be picked up. And it's amazing too, because the software, when you're in the white noise frequency, you can adjust all levels of it. So you can literally tune voices in or out. You can zero in on voices you want to focus on. And there are literally, that white noise is consistent of, if you don't tune anything out, it sounds like you're standing outside of a huge ball and everybody's inside an auditorium talking, and you can't pick out individual voices, but you just hear that overall murmur of communication coming in at all levels and angles. And it's fascinating stuff.
All right, let me ask you, are you experimenting with this? For instance, have you tried, before you even, bring everything up, have you tried doing some quiet meditation? Have you tried to communicate with your eyes shut while you're doing this? Have you, asked for specific spirit to use it to penetrate through, to come through that way? And let me ask you this, do you have that hooked up right in your office, in your own desk right now?
It's not hooked up at the moment, but it's I can't move the camera at the moment, but yeah, it's right here. But to answer your question, you know that about a year ago next Thursday, Cherie's mother passed away.
I know.
And we had been trying to get her to give some sort of signal, some sort of message to Cherie. And we've used all the different spirit boxes that we built. We couldn't get her. We did use this method, and yeah, we had candles. We did a meditation to open our minds prior to doing it. We prayed before we did it, and we got her to respond. In fact, she said to Cherie, "I love you, I miss you." And we both heard it. It was clear as can be, which was really, really a great thing for Cherie, because I know she wanted so bad just to hear her again, and to have that come through was fantastic.
And was it in her own voice?
It was in English, and you could hear the accent.
Okay.
So yes, I without a doubt know that it was her voice, and Cherie didn't doubt it for a second. Cherie said, "That's my mom."
Yeah. Yeah.
So that
Oh
was,
my God. Now, what a gift. What a gift. That's just extraordinary. Extraordinary.
yeah. It's so much fun to experiment with. And you were asking about what other we have a list of experiments to do that is probably 5 pages long, with single line spacing of what each one is. And we're going to continue to roll them out. And I know, same with Ron, he's been doing test after test after test, but it's just it's eye-opening. It's really hard to dismiss. I mean, there's no radio signals. One of the tests is I just bought a single white noise generator, which doesn't use radio at all. It just generates white noise. I want to test that and see if the voices are behind that as well. Whereas it's not coming from a long wave or a short wave radio frequency without any transmission, but there could be no transmission to a white noise generator because it just generates the white noise sound. So that's the next test I'm going to do.
Now, this isn't its own machine. This is software that you can put on any computer.
We refer to it as a method versus a device, because like a spirit box, you flip the on switch and it runs. This is a method. So it takes a world band frequency, long wave or short wave, and then that white noise signal is put into a computer, and then the virtual studio technology uses all these plugins that filters through that white noise, and it takes the white noise, reduces it. You can manipulate the different frequencies of the white noise to higher them, lower them, mute them, expand them, and then all of a sudden you start hearing people talk, or murmur, I guess is a better term for it. Then you can zero in on those murmurs to get them to be full voices. And then you start asking questions, and these intelligent responses seem to, and I say seem because I can only go off after the tests we've done, but seem to be answering intelligently the questions being asked.
Yes. And very distinct voices. I clearly heard a woman speaking. I clearly heard a man speaking. I mean, it was so succinct in terms of, even being able to identify a gender, and that's amazing. That's amazing. But have you asked them if they were once human beings too? Have
I
you
did.
asked? You did, and or have you asked them? Are they another race?
Those are all in the test as far as finding out exactly. I mean, there is probably a list of over 500 questions that are related to whether it's spirit, whether it's extraterrestrial, whether it's multidimensional. And so most of those tests are yet to be performed.
Okay.
But I'm going to have Bill play I think it's the last clip, but it is the one where I was saying or talking about the fact, this one's a little bit longer, but where I actually felt like I was being asked the questions rather than me asking. You will hear multiple voices speaking. You will hear them communicate with each other, and there's a difference of opinion on what they're asking me, and you will hear that come out where they literally almost argue with each other about whether they should be telling me what they're telling me. And then I've got ones coming forward going, don't listen, they're lying to you. And it go ahead and play that one, Bill.
Say Rathman. It's Rathman. Thank you. Yes, it is. All right. What else can you say for me? Do you like being able to speak with me through DRV? Yes, good. Do you have a message for someone? Depends. What does it depend on? Who do you have a message for? Is there someone you'd like me to deliver a message to? Do you have to think? Patience. Okay. I can be patient. Do you have any message for me? Yes, what's my message? Special. Can you tell me what the message is? I heard you say Tony. Yes, I'm listening. It's a favor? Sure. You guys have been good to me. I'll be good to you. What do you need? What can I help with? Treasure? Did you say treasure? What favor can I do for you? I can shut the hell up? Yes. But I don't want to. I like speaking to you guys.
Again, he's human. So that's just strangest thing. Just the strangest thing.
I want to know where the treasure is that isn't buried too deep. And if that's a metaphor or gold.
Right. Well, look where I am. I mean, I'm out in the Southwest. Is that possible? Yeah. Absolutely it is. And that conversation has been picked up since then as well. But I pushed him off because A, I don't have the time right now, and B, once I don't know what's going to occur or, where they're going to do, who knows. But the method is just, I don't want to claim it to be anything that it's not, but
of course,
having done this for communication, ITC for a decade, this is unlike anything I've ever experienced before. And it's voice after voice after voice. It's differences of opinion. It's everything we are as humans today that is carried over in the consciousness but yet there's no other human body in my studio, so these voices are coming and my voice is not broadcast. I'm only speaking in my own tone of voice in my own house, and yet the responses show up. So it's crazy stuff.
What do you want to do with this? Where do you want to go with this? Do you just want to advance it to the point where you feel like you've protected, or perfected the the method? And do you at some point want to share this software?
Oh, absolutely. There's nothing secret here. Like I said, the software is virtual studio technology. It's a free download. The components that go into it, though, there are literally hundreds of thousands of them out. Most of them, there are ones that cost. There are others that are free. And it's a combination of hooking them together to filtrate the white noise. But what do I want to do with it? I want to continue to see what it's capable of. I mean, the fascination to know what kind of information is out there. I mean, it's not a word or two. I mean, there's full sentences that are coming through.
Full sentences.
Self-explanation of
well, they were arguing with each other.
Right.
That was obvious. They were arguing. And they have already told you as you're asking questions, where are you? We can't tell you.
Right.
Not allowed.
You're not allowed. Right. Right. So, I want to experiment with it on every level, every idea, every course to see what can be learned, to see where the boundaries are. And we know from doing ITC that there are a set of questions that we eventually get to where communication just stops. And we've always believed that there's a point where too much information would destroy the path and the learning you're supposed to receive from this life. And we know that we're going to hit that probably in the same way as well, unless it truly is extraterrestrial, where they're willing to share, they're willing to engage, enlighten, and teach. And I think they and hope that they will, because we need it.
Yeah.
We need it.
Well, that's the understatement of the new millennium. If we ever needed to be enlightened, it's right now. But I thought that it was very interesting. I find it absolutely compelling that they're basically arguing with each other about what they are allowed to divulge. That is fascinating. It's like some want to be more forthcoming, and it's almost like there are others that are trying to police the process. Did you get that impression as well?
Well, I did, but I also got the impression that they did something bad. They probably hurt or killed some people for something of value, that they hid it. And who knows, maybe they never got caught, and the guilt over the last 100 years, 200 years, who knows, has finally gotten to them, and maybe they want to give some information about what occurred, what they did, because they start out by saying, we're bad people, this is your company, this is what we did, bad truth. And then you had other ones step in going, no, they're lying to you, like maybe they were part of it too and didn't want, I don't know. I'm guessing at theories of what I'm hearing, just like you are, but it kind of sounds like, there's some regret, and maybe they're trying to make right on past mistakes. Who knows? I honestly don't know.
Mm-hmm. How often do you engage?
Nightly. At least it has been. But my nightly is more like about 30 minutes, because that's about all I have each night.
Yep.
But like on the weekend, I will spend hours taking things off those lists of what I want to test. When we used to do spirit boxes, we would write words on paper. So instead of speaking it, if we just said, okay, I'm writing a word down, then we held up that piece of paper, would that word be said? We know that's been done on spirit boxes, but I can't wait to see what this can do. And
what's your interpretation of the line about the damage from the sandwich? Because that was very clear. I almost got that there was some poison involved.
Very well could have been. I think it was either damage from the sandwich or a daily sandwich. I can't remember which one it was.
Okay.
But if it was damaged, then very well could have been somebody was poisoned. If it was a daily sandwich, that I took that as I asked if they had a message. They said it was special. It's a daily sandwich, meaning that I was being offered some information that wasn't necessarily was typical, but not expected. Meaning, like if somebody said, hey, I made you a cake, or, meaning that it wasn't something that was extraordinary news, but it was something that was being given to me to do something with. I'm just not sure what.
Mm-hmm. So you're really taking this very gradually, kind of baby steps as you go. Do you feel like there's been a repetition of some of these characters? Do you feel like every time you tap in that you're getting different? It's not the same people. It's not the same spirits. It varies. Different people.
Yes, it varies, and it'll vary by frequency. It'll vary by where I adjust. It'll vary by the hertz that I am bringing the white noise in at. So whether that's 14,400 or whether I go to the other end of the spectrum with long wave and I go down to 222. So yes, there are voices all the way through, and the voices will change. They'll change by night. They'll change by the hour of the day. But have I reoccurred and gotten into the voices I've heard prior? Yeah, I have.
What's your interpretation of the male voice that said when you asked to speak with someone you had spoken before? I believe that's how it was. And somebody said she's gone to bed.
That I don't know. And part of the complication is once you pick up on what they're saying, you don't know for sure whether they're even speaking to you. Could he have been speaking to somebody else who asked him a question, where's so-and-so? Well, she went to bed, and that signal just happened to come through the machine. But we hear that a lot. We hear things that don't necessarily fit, at least in the beginning or the end. And we always have to say to ourselves, okay, did we pick up something that wasn't necessarily directed to us? Or was it directed to another being or another spirit or whomever is actually allowing these communications to be picked up? And where they're coming from and how they're being sent. But there's always those one-offs where you're like, okay, do I have the ability to read into every word and sentence said, or are there things that could have been said not directed to me? And like spirit boxes, we've run into that same thing where they might be communicating amongst themselves and you just happen to overhear it. So it's
kind of tough. A form of eavesdropping.
It's a cool form of eavesdropping, especially
cool.
Especially when you can ask a random question and the answer comes back with both timing and relevance to what you asked, meaning not only did the response come in a timely manner to the question, but it related to the question and it gave a response to the question. And that's that alone is enough excitement to continue to research this, see what the capabilities are, and see where the boundaries might lie. And I know we're nowhere near those. So
yeah,
it's exciting.
Which one, when you asked how many of you are there, and they said a lot. Was that the same one that said when you asked that you're not allowed to know where they are? Is that the same? Could we play that again?
Sure. That one is called, I think that's energy of the mind, Bill.
Yeah, that's the one I was most fascinated by of all of them. I mean, they're all amazing, but that one kind of spoke to me.
Yeah.
Can you say Tony? Did you just say Rathman? Yep. So you know who I am. Can I know who you are? Yes, sir. Thank you. Who am I speaking to? How many spirits are with me right now? Let's say 8. How many spirits are with me right now? A lot? Where are you at right now? How do you hear me speak? How do you hear me when I speak to you? Did you say they're dead? Yes. So you were once alive like me. Yes. So are you on this planet as well? Right, if I'm really speaking to people who had passed away from this planet, can you say hello, spirits? Sorry, you like being called spirits. Yep, okay.
Jesus God.
I mean, I was getting first and last names. Now, I don't know if I spelled them right, but
Yeah. Did you do any historical research on who, like, for instance, Chip Patton might be?
it's in the notes of things to research. Like I said, the biggest thing is time. I would give anything to have that 8 months I had off. 6 months ago or whenever that, because I would eat up that time with.
Yeah, we're
all
not
the
ordering
things
another pandemic just for you, Tony. We're not.
No, I don't want another pandemic, but to have the time off from work to be able to dive into that list that just keeps growing. But yes, both of those names, research needs to be done. Who are they? Are they listed anywhere? What did they do? What was their profession? What were they? But to have a full name, first and last, like that, given out of nowhere, it's fascinating to me. Just absolutely fascinating.
Do you have an archivist or a historian that works in your group that could start researching that, different spellings? I mean, Chip is Chip, but and different spellings of Padum, Padimumem. To see if you get some obit that pulls up, nationwide or what.
Yeah, we don't at the moment, but it may be something as this progresses. Because, like I said, my portion of it is only half. Ron has just some amazing responses as well, and it's that combined effort. And then, like I said, that one that crossed over. But there will be so many things like this that will take additional resources, requirements, and time to truly dig into. That's the only way the research and the understanding will come to light, is to be able to have somebody dig through all that and say, yep, okay, here's the names I've got. This is when they passed, or this is what they did. And then literally be able to go back and ask, are you this person, or were you this person? So I'm not sure. I'm not sure when that will come to light. Like I said, because there's so many things, but literally each piece, each clip that is gotten, there's, from every answer, there's 1,000 more questions, and it keeps rotating in that fashion, which is fun, but it's also overwhelming.
Yeah, and it is overwhelming, but I will tell you, though, that over all the years that I've used, I never touched them because I short them out and killed them, but but I do use them at a safe distance. Spirit Box, Pandora's, all the,
Right.
the Echo Box, all of that. I've had extraordinary success with them. But I will tell you that one of my own common denominators is when I start asking, not who are you, but where are you? And I have gotten it in a variety of ways over and over and over again. We are not allowed to tell you that.
Right.
We are not allowed to tell you that. I mean,
Yep.
a multitude of times in all different locations, all different kinds of, different frequencies, different, whether it's Tim Woolworth or it's George Lopez or it's, it's this one or it's that one. It's the same thing over and over again. We're not allowed. We can't tell you that.
Yeah, there are what we believe to be universal laws, which they're not allowed to break. And certain questions we know when we're pushing those boundaries, and same exact situation, it'll just go silent. Answers will stop, or they'll flat out tell you, you can't know that. We can't tell you, and then it stops. Then they don't answer anymore. But and like I said before, I think too much information would interrupt this life so much that you wouldn't get from it what you need to get. And so I think those boundaries are put in place so that you don't get so distracted or so disrupted from this life, that you can focus on what you're here to learn, what growth you're here to achieve, spiritual growth, mental growth, and everything in between. And so those laws keep that from affecting and changing your thought process of what you're here to do.
But isn't this process, the growth of this field, the research in it, don't you think that that's part of our spiritual growth and our ascension?
Absolutely. But depending on where your mental thought process is at about all of that, I mean, anybody can ask that question, where are you at, or where. I'm sure their answers are also based on what you're ready to handle and know. So, I have no idea where I'm at on that ladder of understanding. But I would think that depending on who asked, the answers may vary as to what information comes through based on what maybe they know you can handle, you'll accept, you'll be able to ingest and adjust to. Whereas somebody who would absolutely freak out, maybe they pull back, don't give that information. You can't know, you're not allowed. I don't know. But I know that we've been given answers to questions, and I'm not aware of one yet that has been incorrect. So it's fascinating how it comes through and what comes through. But I think a lot of it has to do with your own person or your own path as an individual, about what you can handle, what you're willing to accept, and what you're willing to integrate into your whole thought process of life and the universe and everything in between.
Yeah. Well, that's a brilliant answer if there ever was one. I would like to, add a few questions to your list from me.
Okay. Absolutely.
You got a pen?
I do.
I
sure do. Pen.
Ask them if they can read your mind.
Got it.
Ask them if they can hear you think. Ask them if they come in dreams.
Okay.
And ask them if they know where they are.
Good questions. Well, the one about do they know what I think? Even starting out doing just EVPs, we know that a lot of times the answer would show up on the recorder before we even finish the question. So the ability to be able to know what I'm thinking or what I was going to ask, if I only got 3 or 4 words out, the answer shows up on the recorder before I even finished saying. that gives me a pretty good indication that yes, they do have that ability. The answer to energy of the mind, it's a real thing. Again, supports that process. But those other questions I don't think I've asked, so I will definitely add those to the list.
Good. Tell them I said hi.
I will definitely do that. And I'm sure, positive, they know who you are.
Yeah, we have to get you out to the farm, and we need to do some experimentation at the farm with this.
I agree.
Get Cody and Satori out there. Get
Yes.
a wide variety of methods. Where somebody's doing this, somebody's doing the Estes method. Cody and Satori are doing their spiritual connection. I've got the spirit box going. I mean, so that we're just. I have John Lento's original spirit box, and
nice.
It is. I don't use it in the house. George taught me not to use it in the house, to take it outside. But I have yet to take it to the farm. And I was just there for a week. I should have, but I was filming something else entirely.
Right.
And it, that filming schedule ate my lunch, and it was like there was no time to do anything except grab a quick meal and a few hours of sleep, and then right back to it. So, yeah, I need to go up there and just spend some time just with my fellow researchers, where we can all focus on the same thing at the same time with different methodology.
Yep. That's an awesome idea, because the more ideas, the more methodologies that are out there and available for them to interact with. So much could be learned from that, by knowing which ones are maybe easiest for them to use, which ones seem to be the most effective. And that research alone, that understanding alone, can change the next set of plans or devices that come out. And being able to test under same circumstances, same timing, same environmental factors, which ones seem to receive the most responses. That'd be one of the best tests I could think of to be done. And the farmhouse would definitely be the place to do it.
Well, the paradigm shift keeps shifting and shifting and shifting. I mean, we are taking sometimes baby steps, sometimes quantum leaps in terms of our understanding, our comprehension, our ability to communicate is being enhanced over time in ways that, I mean, even 10 or 20 years ago, if you even suggested to people that this would be happening now, they'd tell you you were nuts, that we'll never get to this place.
Yeah, completely true. And, it's good that a lot of that has changed and it can be discussed freely. But, that I think one of the funniest things, though, is that people will try so hard and for so long and so many different methods to communicate with extraterrestrial or spirits. But think of the problems we could solve if we would just put that type of energy into speaking with each other. I mean,
yeah.
So that, I always find that strange, and yet kind of sad that if we could communicate with each other the way that we try to communicate with spirits, the world would be a different place.
It would. And if we'd take the same amount of effort and time to try to understand each other that we do with our spirit interaction, put that kind of compassion and that kind of eagerness to understand another point of view, another, and the kindness. I mean, the way that you asked the questions, you were so sensitive to them and what what they were trying to impart. I want us to get to a point where we can literally have one-on-one communication with our loved ones, which, those who have passed. And maybe we won't ever get there. And maybe there's a reason for that. Because if I know that I can get on my phone, hit an app, and talk to my sister April every single day and have a full-fledged conversation with her, I would be I would be in rapture. I would be so enthralled that I just don't think I would do anything else. I really think that there's a reason that there is this somehow perceived separation.
Absolutely.
But I really don't think that's reality. I think that there is no veil, that we are all surrounded all the time, that we are watched, that we are observed, that we are communicated with in unique and unusual ways that we might not even, pick up in terms of our own sensory perceptions, which is why I asked about, the going into a more meditative, more reflective approach before you even turn it on.
Right.
And, to see if, but, I think it was really interesting because you're probably picking up on it as well. Some of them are cranky. Some of them are a little bit more cooperative. Some of them are like, no, I can't tell you this. And then there's another one that's obviously anxious to do so. And I think that the message that we should get from that in total is that as different as our characters and personalities are here as earthbound souls, as human beings, it's the same on the other side. And
Correct.
And particularly, I'm interested in the one line that struck me, because I've often asked my friend Chip Coffey, do spirits really sleep? Do they really? I mean, do they have lives that are like a new life, quite similar to our own? And he said, yeah, they sleep. They do. They rest.
I've heard them say that. I've heard that say I was sleeping or he's
Yeah.
sleeping.
Oh, we have a question. Tony, is it possible what we perceive as death when it mentioned that in a clip is simply our consciousness spirit evolving beyond the biological host existence? Well, that's great.
I mean, that's an excellent question. And the fact of the matter is, I believe, yes, it is. What we call death. I mean, even if you look back at just those 3 or 4 little clips that I played, they said, they're dead. I said, oh, you're dead. Well, we call it death, or you call it death.
Uh-huh.
And then they said it's like portage, meaning it's a transition.
Right.
So,
like we went from here to there, but we can't tell you where there is.
Correct. Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
So, the fact that they're still communicating in individual voices, that they have free will to make their opinions known, whether they want to do something or they don't, that to me is consciousness moving from one form to another. I mean, even science says energy can't be created or destroyed. It can only change form. If you think of the human body as being the physical case and the spirit being the energy of it, then that energy can only change form to another dimension or plane or whatever term you want to use for it. But does it disappear? In my opinion, no. No, it doesn't.
No, it doesn't. When I was at the farm, I was at the farm a couple of months ago too, for an entirely different project. And just before I got there, someone was doing an EVP session in the house and asked the spirits, or told the spirits that I was coming to the house that day. And the immediate response was, we know. We know. I mean, with some excitement that And yes, they do. And yes, they did. Um, we are just beginning to scratch the surface with this. Just beginning to scratch the surface. I mean,
Yeah.
it wasn't that long ago that microwaves didn't exist, that
Right.
dishwashers were a newfangled thing, that cell phones were just like a thought. Well, wow, wouldn't that be cool if we could just carry our phone around in our pocket with us? And now look what we're doing with these quantum leaps in technology that are allowing us to tap into different frequencies, to ride different vibrations and wavelengths, and to utilize that energy in a way that is literally translated as consciousness, that
Right.
exists as consciousness. Everything is one thing.
It is.
Everything is one thing.
Well, I remember you and I talking 6 months, 8 months ago, asking that exact question: is do we ever think you'll be able to communicate almost as Thomas Edison's phone to the dead? And I think we both agreed that it would be technology based, and that as technology changes every 3 months or 6 months,
Yeah.
things get faster, smaller, they work better. Even in dealing with spirit boxes, I mean, there was a new chip out, every 3 months that did things faster and better than what was done before. But with the way technology is evolving, there will be a day that the technology is there and science hopefully has an understanding, because we call this the paranormal, but let's face it, this is normal. This is everyday stuff.
Yes,
We just don't understand it yet.
Right, exactly.
And when those two can come together, where science can say, okay, we understand, we know what's occurring, and here's the technology to be able to pull these signals in. And I think one day will come where it is absolutely possible to have the conversation, like you were saying, just pick up the piece of equipment, have the conversation. But the bigger picture is, what will that do to our impression of what this life is supposed to hold, learn, and that's why I think those boundaries are there. I mean, let's face it, the human body itself is the boundaries. Our hearing only goes from 20 hertz to 20 kilohertz. Our eyesight only sees visible light, not 90% of the rest of the spectrum.
Right.
Our ability to speak comes in certain frequencies and tones, and so our own body, I think, blocks out.
Yeah, it has inherent limitations. Absolutely.
Right. And we're not supposed to know too much more than what the 3D world is presenting to us, because that's, like you said, soul school, and that's where it's where you learn.
Yeah. And the test always precedes
the lesson, right?
Always. Every time. Wow. This is really amazing, Tony. I'm so pleased. I'm so pleased that the methodology is evolving. I'm so pleased that I'm so thrilled to see how excited you are about it.
I am.
Because you really always have been a techie, geeky kind of guy. You really have.
But yeah, it fascinates me. And I remember 12 years ago getting this excited when I heard my first EVP. Mm-hmm. And voice was always an interest to us because, it far outweighed any other detector or device that showed some blinking light or beeping sound. I mean, I can tell if it's male or female. I can tell if it's an adult or a child. I can get an impression of their emotional state. Are they happy? Are they angry? Are they sad? I can hear what language they're speaking, and if there's a dialect to it. I can get so much information before even what I hear them say, that it was uncomparable to any other paranormal device that gave you information. And still today, that's the same. I have that same feeling when I hear communication or voices or that I'm not sure where they're coming from or who they're coming from. And that to me is absolutely just the most fascinating thing in the world.
Well, this, for me, this has been, between my interaction on an airplane this morning with an inspiring young woman to being inspired by what you're picking up on a computer through a program that's been developed to, oh my God. I mean, what an incredibly enlightening day. We really are a world awakening to new technology, to each other from around the world, that we're able to communicate with each other as human beings in a way that even 100 years ago was absolutely impossible. That was, in the course of history, the blink of an eyelash.
Right.
Just like that. And
Right.
now we can have these intimate conversations at 35,000 feet and make, a bonded connection that will be lifelong. And then, tonight we're talking about spirit in some kind of an afterlife, but they will not divulge what that is because we're not supposed to know. And one's going to bed and one's talking about a sandwich in danger. And I'm like, oh my God, this life,
Yeah.
who would want to live a mundane life? Who would? I know
Exactly.
millions and millions of people do. They get up, they put one shoe on, the other shoe on, they go off to work, they come home, they drink beer all weekend, they watch some football, and it's the monotony of it that almost brings them a certain level of comfort. And then there are those of us who seek more, who seek out answers to impossible questions. One of the things I told my new friend this morning when she was questioning about, what was possible and impossible in life, I told her the story of the bumblebee. Bumblebees are so fat and their wings are so flimsy that according to the laws of physics, they can't fly.
Right.
But they don't know that. So
Right.
they fly anyway.
That is actually true. The way their bodies are shaped, the weight of them, and then the dimensions of the wings, technically, right. They should not, from a physics standpoint, be able to lift off the ground, but they do.
Yeah.
So it's not necessarily what you know. Sometimes it's what you don't know that gets you ahead.
Yeah, exactly. Sometimes what you don't know. Bill, do you want to hop in for a minute or two and say hi to our dear friend Tony? Where is he? What's he doing? Where
Looks
is
like
he?
he's posting
There
addresses.
he
Here he
is.
comes.
That's exactly what I was doing. I'm getting all the social medias and spreading the word on the great work that he, Cherie, the whole team, Chris, Lourdes, everyone. They're just awesome.
Yeah.
And I got to say, when I went with them, what was it, like 2 years ago now, Tony?
A little over a year.
Sure.
We were out there in April or May, so it's a little over a year. But
they are the absolute professionals that they are. They are amazing.
Yeah.
I can't say enough about what they do, and I had a great time, and I seen it firsthand. And
yes, you did.
Firsthand.
I
mean,
know.
there was that one clip, I'll never forget it, and we heard the noise, and we all went.
Right.
We went over there, and he captures what looks like a boy in the bathroom.
Yep.
But Tony,
I have this little kid on a FLIR standing in the bathroom, and he was there. We caught him, and then he was gone, and didn't see him the rest of the night.
No, but it almost looked, because I still have that footage and the photos. It almost looks extraterrestrial too.
It does have that to it. But you know what? And that's one thing I've been repeating over and over and over is that what we call, there's such a connection between the two, not only locations, the Conjuring House, Skinwalker Ranch, where there's a combination of what people say, okay, there's paranormal, wait, there's extraterrestrial.
But there's more. Yeah.
What if it's one and the same? What if it's
one? And technically, if you really think about it, spirit would qualify as extraterrestrial. They're no
extraterrestrial, right.
longer in a physical vessel, not of the earth, not
Right.
of this plane of action. So I guess technically they do qualify as extraterrestrial in nature, but or even perhaps elemental.
Right.
This one of my favorite quotations I wrote is years ago, still holds true today, and that is, the safest assumption that we can make is that we know nothing compared with what there is to know.
So true.
No, and
So
I
true.
think that if you bring that kind of humility to the study and the research of this, if you bring that kind of, if you're not afraid to say, I don't know, and to have that be okay. I'm working on that. We're working toward, a more fundamental comprehension of what this is, that we're capturing something. We don't know exactly what we're capturing.
Well,
I think that's the most honest way to approach this.
It's the only way to approach it, because the fact of the matter is we don't know. We don't know literally anything. We come up with theories and we try to make that theory fit into the pieces that we are experiencing. But the fact that people say, okay, well, who are you speaking to? I don't know. Where's the best place to get voices? I don't know. That literally is the answer to almost all of this, because we don't have the answers. And by the time we do, we probably won't be here any longer to share them. So
we'll
be
on the other side, speaking through a machine, saying, I
through a
can't tell
machine,
you.
right?
I just want to add, though, it's also about the people doing the investigating.
Yes.
If you have a positive mindset and you show respect at a location,
open.
yes, and open and objective, even skeptical, but like I said, I've seen them in action, and I see Cherie right away. But what if this could be this or that? And they're all on top of it. But it's also, like I said, it's about the people doing the investigating. And they are incredible people, and they respect when they go in. And I think that helps make that connection, the way they take the whole setting and the environment with respect, with love and care, like genuinely caring about what's going on in any specific location. The same could be said with Cody and Satori, Ken DaCosta. There are certain people at this level that know exactly how to approach an investigation or do the research. And he and the rest of the team are definitely one of those people.
The most compelling thing that I ever heard George captured, and it was an EVP, and they said, don't forget us. And that just touched my heart so much, that don't forget us.
Right.
Well, no, of course not. Of course we're not. We're trying to communicate. We're trying to have this emotional discourse. We're trying to connect, because if, there is a unified field of consciousness and everything is one thing, then we should have that simpatico. We should be able to do that, and we can achieve it. It might not be in your lifetime or mine, but there we are, and there it is. And Bill, thank you for all the loading of pictures and this and that. And
thanks, Bill.
Keep up the great work. Keep up the great work, Tony, Cherie, and the rest of the team.
I love you all. Everyone have a wonderful night. You are blessed beyond belief.